So yeah, as you probably gathered from my Ice Warrior friend doing the intro there, today I'm going to be reviewing The Seeds of Death, which is the second story to feature said Ice Warriors, and is once again the second Doctor story, like the first story simply titled The Ice Warriors. It's written by their creator, Brian Hales, or at least it's said to be written by him, and while he did write a lot of it in fairness, it was heavily edited by Terrance Dicks to the point where Terrance felt he'd sort of like brutally demolished Brian Hales' original story and had to profusely apologise to him, and all things were forgiven and whatnot. There was no bad blood between the two, and what we ended up with was this story, which is solo credited to Brian Hales, but really it's written by both him and Terrance Dicks, although he does receive credit of script editor, as was his job at the time. So then, this story originally started out as Lords of the Red Planet, as you can see right there. That's a lost story, by the way, by Big Finish, which they later adapted, because it started off as this story set on Mars, that was supposed to tell the origin story of the Ice Warriors. But however, because that story proved far too ambitious, it got cut from the schedule. But they still wanted an Ice Warrior story from Brian Hales, so he instead came up with The Seeds of Death, as you can see before you there. And the cover here, this is of the special edition version. There was a standard edition version much earlier, which you could still pick up probably, but I think it costs a lot more, so it's probably better just to get the Revisitations 2 box set, which this features in, and then you also get some extra stories with that, which are Carnival of Monsters and Resurrection of the Daleks, as you can see there. So then there's a rather nice cover, sort of like harkening back to the original cover with Slar there doing those things with her hands and whatnot. Although we've got the Earth there now, we've got Miss Kelly, we have Radnar, and we have the Doctor there, and then we got the Earth there. I believe I called that the Earth, that's actually the moon behind Miss Kelly there. And you got this rather nice diamond kite square on its side shape there. The spine right here, as you can see, is standard stuff for this for the Doctor Who DVD range. On the back here you have starring Patrick Troughton by Brian Hales, as I previously went through. It's sort of by him and Terrance Dicks, and then quite a few special features on there, as one could expect from a special edition set. Opening up now, there's disc 1, and there's disc 2 with Slar being replaced by a very nice picture of an Ice Warrior there. And finally the booklet, which on the front there, as you can see, is the same image as the front with a little bit of writing. On the inside we have all the same stuff as normal. You've got special features, and you have the people involved in the commentary. And finally on the back here we have the chapter points, and it is a 6-part story. And now we come to my thoughts on the story itself, and I think it's a very good second Doctor story. It's towards the end of his era, and during Series 6 with Jamie and Zoe, they were sort of like trying some different formulas, whereas before in Series 5 they very much stick to the sort of like same Base Under Siege formula, bar the Enemy of the World, which broke that trend, but nevertheless stayed in with the style and sort of like the tone they were going for. Series 6 was a bit more all over the place, a bit more experimental, harkening back to sort of like the early days of with the first Doctor and whatnot, where they tended to try all these different formulas and whatnot, see what worked. And this story doesn't really follow that theme, but still sort of like fits in because it's different from all the others. It is harkening back to Series 5 this time, in being that it is a Base Under Siege story, and Base Under Siege stories, they can go many different ways, and this one definitely does. It's not so much Base Under Siege in some ways, but it is in others. You've sort of like got the moonbase being the base that is under siege, but at the same time, you've got the characters trying to get into it, the characters trying to get out of it, while the Ice Warriors sort of like hatch their plans and whatnot. And that's all very interesting how it's Base Under Siege on paper, but nevertheless does have some things which will like break the mould of the standard place under siege stories. The second Doctor in the story is absolutely wonderful, as you can imagine. He, Patrick Troughton that is, Fraser Hines and Wendy Peppery have been working together for quite a while now, you know, because this is towards the end of their era. So you can very much see that they're a well-oiled team by this point, and yeah, well, they did hit the ground running pretty much. You can very much tell they've been together for a long time by the time you get to this one, and that's nice to see how that dynamic works. And obviously you have loads of wonderful little moments in there, such as when Jamie's sort of like looking for the blast door switch, well, the Doctor's mainly looking for the blast door switch, he and Zoe just sort of like helping, and then Jamie goes, "Ah, could that be it?" and then just flips the light switch off. And you know, it's such an amusing scene, and then the Doctor's like, "Oh no, Jamie!" and then sort of like flips it back on again, and then finally finds the blast door switch, obviously. But you know, it's just a nice little scene, and it's just wonderful seeing the relationship between those two characters. And then obviously you've got Zoe in the fold as well, and she does many wonderful things in this story too. And ultimately they are a well-oiled machine. They're three very strong characters, work very well together. It's a very different dynamic to what they had with Victoria, because obviously she was from the past, Zoe's from the future, and Zoe is sort of like much more intellectual. Not that I'm calling Victoria dumb, obviously, it's just that it's sort of like in Zoe's character much more, whereas Victoria's character was very different, being from Victorian England and whatnot. So yeah, you can easily see how just changing one character in such a way would change the whole story, really. But anyway, I'm getting a bit sidetracked here. Let's talk about the other characters in this story now, and you of course have Radna, who you can see there on the cover, who the actor whose name I do not know, he came back for Revenge of the Cybermen as well, playing a different character obviously, but you know, he is a very good actor, and he's quite a good character in this, I'd say. Fairly standard sort of like leader stuff, but nevertheless a very entertaining character. Then we have Miss Kelly, who very much knows all there is to know about TMAT. She is sort of like the point of reference for that sort of thing. And you know, TMAT itself is quite an interesting concept, really. And you know, it's sort of like the idea that people can instantly travel from one place to another. But what I like about this story is that it doesn't just take that concept, but also takes the idea that space travel is sort of like now becoming extinct, because people don't really care what's beyond the moon and whatnot. They really care about getting from place to place as quickly as possible, and arguably this story is even more relevant nowadays in that case, because we're more interested in just sort of like shrinking down technology and whatnot, making our lives easier, rather than sort of like exploring what's beyond the moon and whatnot. And you know, it's interesting how that works and how it's still relevant today in its message, and arguably, well, it's even more so relevant today, I'd say. Sort of like back then it was sort of like a warning for what the future could be, and now we've sort of like reached that future in a way. Obviously we don't have instant travel, but you know, it's an analogy, you can get away with it, and a very interesting one at that. And you know, I think TMAT very much works well in that respect. But Miss Kelly, going back to her quickly, she is a very strong character, very well written, and you know, people who say sort of like women characters weren't written well back in the 60s or the 70s or even the 80s for Doctor Who's like, you know, you got examples like Miss Kelly here, you got Zoe also in this story, you have loads of well written characters, and you know, this stigma really has sort of like been expanded beyond belief. Obviously there were some cases where it did happen, but you know, that wasn't all the time, and I think that it has been exaggerated much more. And if you need a good example, Miss Kelly is definitely one of those. Now we come to the Ice Warriors in this story, who are very much different from the way they were in the original story, the Ice Warriors. You know, the design is a bit better now. It hasn't been adapted that much, but sort of like the neck piece and the mouthpiece does seem to be improved quite a bit. They seem to be a bit more linear in their design, except of course for Sla, who's sort of like the leader, who's very much more slimlined, more like a snake than a turtle, I'd say. If the Ice Warriors you compare to a turtle, then Sla is very much more like a snake, and you know, he still retains some elements. You know, you got the chin bit obviously, which you can see on the cover there, and you've also got the eyepieces. They sort of like are similar to the Ice Warriors eyepieces, and then of course you've got the Lego Man hands there. So you've got all that nice stuff, which very much associates him with the Ice Warriors, but still sort of like puts him above them because he is very different at the same time. And it's quite a nice design overall, and it's much more easier for the actor to, well, act in, because he's sort of like not restricted in the mouth movement, which helps quite a lot to get a lot of expressiveness across there. And of course he still retains the sort of like strained hiss of a voice, which is very sort of like, well, it's just instantly recognisable as the Ice Warriors, really. And you know, it's a great voice and works very well. It sort of like matches the monsters at the time, and it's sort of like interesting because you have these big brutish monsters, but yet their voices are much more of a hiss, which sort of like juxtaposes to that, but still sort of like, because we're used to it as Doctor Who fans, it very much fits at the same time. So yeah, Ice Warriors, great villains, much improved here, I would say. I'm not the biggest fan of the Ice Warriors, their first story. You know, I think it's good, but not really great. This story, however, the Ice Warriors themselves are much improved, and they've now got a fleet rather than just sort of like about 6 of them, I think it was, maybe even less in the original, but now they have a whole fleet of them, and we don't really get to see that many of them. But we do nevertheless get to see an Ice Warrior, sort of like general or whatever it is, the leader of the attack, and we get to now learn that it's sort of like their voice is what their voice is really like in their own atmosphere, because obviously their voice is strained in our atmosphere, which is why it comes out as that hissing voice that is so iconic to them, but funnily enough isn't their natural voice really. So yeah, it's quite interesting for that respect. More explanation of Ice Warriors is always good. And then when they came back next time in the Curse of Peridon, they got even more built upon them. So like you get to see that they abandoned their warlike nature, but that's a story for another day. So yes, this Seeds of Death is a very good representation of the Ice Warriors. They are a bit more standard in terms of villains here compared to how they were originally, but you know, you've got to have some exceptions really, and this is probably the one where the Ice Warriors are the most villainous, the most all-out monsters really. And you have those wonderful scenes where you have that single Ice Warrior just sort of like shooting down all the different troops in the grounds and whatnot. It's very well done. And then the Ice Warrior has his little dance when he exits the T-Mat machine in Earth Control. It's quite amusing to see him wobble around a bit and do his "I have come to Earth" dance. It's just sort of like you know, it's just great stuff really. And yeah, it's a bit ridiculous I guess, but you know, it's just one moment out of many other moments in which the Ice Warriors are far better than that brief moment of shame right there where he does a little dance. Who knows, maybe the Travelnet sort of like blurred his judgment for a second there and he was just taking his surroundings quickly. I don't know, you can come up with all kinds of excuses for that, but you know, I need to stop talking about that one moment. I've got it on my mind now, I can't get rid of it. But yeah, the Ice Warriors get a thumbs up from me in this story. Well, they don't have thumbs, so that would be a bit difficult, but you know, I have thumbs, so I can give them a thumbs up. Well done, Ice Warriors. So after that little train wreck for discussion, I will now move on to talk about the direction and the production values of this story, and they are quite good. It does look quite good visually. The set design is very nice for the most part, and the foam, the way that's used, is very well done also, especially during the scenes where it sort of like builds up, piles up, and you know, that cliffhanger to part 5 where the Doctor's just being attacked by the stuff. That's very well done. And you know, Patrick Troughton has the best sort of like scared face, and you know, when the Doctor's scared, you know that the children watching should be scared also. And that is very interesting really, because you don't really have that many other Doctors which sort of like act frightened except in the extreme, whereas Patrick Troughton does it all the time, and it's sort of like a clownish fright as well, and it's just so wonderful really. And you know, now I'm talking about Troughton again, so let's move back quickly to production values. There is some stuff that's a bit off, because I mean, you have this giant place that's sort of like built for the Weather Control Bureau, but the actual weather controls is just sort of like this one tiny little panel. Maybe that was a bit of an oversight, I don't know. One shot that I didn't think was done very well, and that sort of like I didn't actually notice this the first time, was that Phipps died. The character was sort of like there during the first 4 parts, who sort of helped the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe land on the moon base and whatnot. That character, because of the way it was shot, and just sort of like, because the image itself, when the Ice Warriors attacked, obviously you had sort of like that boing of the screen going on, and then the character collapsed. You know, I feel that well, you didn't even see him fall down, you just sort of like saw the thing at the screen. Obviously he was behind a grate as well. Yeah, I didn't really catch it the first time. There was a bit of dialogue in the next episode which I must have missed, where it did say he died, but I sort of like thought that he was randomly forgotten after he went down to Earth. Shame on me for not noticing that he did die, or maybe shame on the production for not making it clear enough. I don't know, but that's just one thing that did bother me the first time, and then the second time I watched it, it was like, oh, he died, I didn't realise that. Oh, well, I feel rather bad now. But yeah, it's just one particular shot that I don't feel was done as good as it could have been. Speaking of the boing of the Ice Warriors gun, I do prefer the way that was done in the original story, where it was just sort of like a single sort of like shot, and then the picture blurs into that, then pops out again, and the character dies. I preferred that to the constant shaking of the image here. I think the original version that we saw in the Ice Warriors is a bit more effective. But that's just my opinion, you know. Maybe some people prefer this version, maybe others agree with me and prefer the original gunshot in the Ice Warriors. Who knows? Voice your opinions in the comments below, I guess. We'll have a poll, see which one's more popular, I don't know. But anyway, overall, The Seeds of Death, well, let's get on to that. Yeah, overall, The Seeds of Death is quite an underrated story in my opinion. You know, it doesn't seem to have that many that much discussion about it when I think about it. I think it's just one of those stories that's there, really. I think it's rather underrated. I personally think it's one of those quintessential Troughton stories in a lot of ways, and you know, it's surprising, but I think it is a solid story that doesn't really get enough credit due to it, really, because it's often forgotten under such classics like Tomb of the Cybermen, the recently found Web of Fear. The also recently found Enemy of the World has got a lot of popularity since it's been found. It's sort of like shot up on lists. People have sort of like embraced that one a lot more than they did when it was just audio and part 3. You know, the Invasion as well, the War Games. It's sort of like forgotten under all those, but I think it is very good. Maybe not up to the height of some of those, but nevertheless, it's a solid story. 8 out of 10 for me. This one's getting, you know, I think. If you haven't watched it in a while, give The Seeds of Death a second chance. You won't regret it. It's very enjoyable. Not one you have to pay too close attention to, except when Phibbs is being shot. But other than that, you know, it's a very good story. And I forgot to talk about Fusham, so I am quickly going to talk about Fusham, who is the what's it called, the technician who's stuck up on the moon base. Don't know how I forgot to talk about him. He's quite an interesting character. He's sort of like the cowardly character, and he's the one who in science fiction you're made to hate, really. You know, sort of like in science fiction or fantasy or most of these types of stories, really, if there's a cowardly character who sort of like betrayed his friends just because he wants to live, you know, you're sort of like made to sort of like hate that character. It's like, oh, you should die with dignity, not betray your race and whatnot. But actually, he's probably one of the most realistic ones, really, because think about it, if you were put in that situation, I think most people would probably end up doing the same thing, really, and, you know, that's not a bad thing. I'm not calling you all cowards or anything, but, you know, put in that life or death situation, you know, I think it's understandable why Fusham would do it, and then, you know, he ultimately mans up and does make the sacrifice and sort of like helps to ultimately defeat the Ice Warriors, which is a very nice scene, very well done, I think, and a very well done moment for his character where he gets his comeuppance, but sort of like turns good again, and he's also just a very intriguing character, very well written, not talked about enough, maybe because somehow people keep forgetting him, like I almost did here. But anyway, now that I've got that out of the way, no surprises coming now. I don't have anything else to talk about here. The Seeds of Death, as I said, is an 8 out of 10. Solid story, really well made. And yeah, that's all I've got to say for now. thanks for watching, everyone. Next week, well, not next week, this Friday, hopefully, I will be reviewing Aquitaine. No, sorry, Monday, I will be reviewing Aquitaine, a Fifth Doctor main range release from February this year. So, thank you all for watching this video, everyone, and I will see you all next time.
Kill him.
Run!
Do you realise what you're doing?
I'm trying to save our lives.
If you're going to invade the Earth, you'll never succeed. There'll be too much resistance.